Yeah.
I mean, we're in
The view looks okay.
I also have it set in a little tighter maybe than, I don't know, do you normally have it set out?
No, we normally squeeze it in.
Right, so that it's more
Yeah.
class.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think
It's lovely.
okay. We'll see when anybody joins us, whether
We got
or not
nobody
it's-
yet.
Nobody yet, so.
Keith should get on there. I'm going to whack him.
Yeah, the boss lady will
Somebody's
be
on.
joining.
We'll see if
He's
it's
going
Keith or
to
not.
hear about it.
So whoever somebody is, if you could let us know what our volume sounds like and all the good things.
I don't know who
Visibility.
it is. I didn't bring my other iPad to log in from my perspective. It's, until they pop up with a message,
Yeah.
I don't know
You don't know who it is.
Oh,
yeah.
gotcha.
No, although I can pull it up on my phone and find out.
See how many devices you can get going.
Yeah, sure, why not? I mean,
And then it all just blows up.
that would be nice. Let's make sure to turn my
That's one of
volume
my
down.
favorite little emojis. It's like the one where your head's blowing up. Like, oh no, there it goes again.
Did you notice, off topic completely, but that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
There's new emojis on the iPhone.
Oh,
On the,
I just have I have Samsung, so I don't have any of those new
there's new
weird,
emojis.
unusual.
And I
Nice.
don't know what they're for. The one that I like.
You got to be
is really-
careful.
I know.
I
don't
still use the
them,
regular
I don't
ones
know
wrong.
What they are. There. Volume's fine. Deb and Trish are a bit quiet. Okay. You can turn us up. No worries.
That's an amazing
One of them is
statement.
somebody who, well, maybe neither one of them has been told that before.
What, that we're too
That we're
quiet?
too
You're too
quiet.
quiet.
That's probably true.
What are you trying to say?
Hey, I did not call you a knucklehead. That's number one.
Well, actually, he did.
I know, I was just kidding.
He really did.
He called you a what?
Phil on
On
Sunday.
Sunday.
Yeah.
See, I was going to do substitutes at the table, and then he wanted to say, replacement
Oh.
knuckleheads for the regular
Oh.
knuckleheads.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
he said Sunday.
Well, he
in
didn't
announcements.
call me Nancy. Remember?
No,
Yeah.
he did. Yes, he did.
He did,
yes.
like
I
4
know.
times. And I kept going,
And we all, in this whole corner, kept going, Deb,
It's-
Deb,
I'm like,
Deb.
I don't.
I
can
will say,
run up
though,
there and whap him.
he looked out, and Nancy was right in his
Yeah,
vision,
in
so
his
I'm sure
vision.
it was
So I'm sure it was like an automatic connection.
Oh, I'm sure.
And
I'm sure.
we look so much. No, that's not right. We're the same height,
You're both small stature.
but she's got her dark hair, and I don't anymore.
No, but it's still sort of dark, though, even though
I'm
it's a
thinking-
salt and pepper.
It's a salt and pepper. It's more silvery. I'm going with pewter.
Why not?
Pewter sounds good.
I don't know. It's because the picture's grainy. I'm not sure what mine looks like. I don't know. I don't care.
It looks cute.
And Rustin is flannel.
There's Russ.
Of course.
All right, so
You got to have something to hang the mic on. I only have so many shirts.
But
I was like, oh, it's cool. I can wear a long sleeve today. That solves the problem.
As
instead of
opposed
having
to
to tuck it
the
in the
t-shirt.
tuck,
Yeah.
then it gets the ruffle,
Yeah.
like
And it looks like
how
what's wrong
mine
with
is probably doing right now.
I'm not a fan of the, mic against the neck.
No, I'm gonna try and move that so I don't hit it and it doesn't. That's one of the things, whenever anybody has a mic on like this, that I'm very annoyed by. Like when it's rustling. Like
Oh,
if-
yeah,
if a
clothes are
necklace
rustling or-
or their
yeah.
hair is long and it's like,
The
I
ones
can't
on-
help it. I'm always rustling. You're gonna lay it out there. I'm just gonna.
You gotta have it. You gotta.
I'm
have
gonna knock it down. There's
that's
no
good.
chance I was sliding
That
by.
was good. I opened the door, you walked right through.
Right
and,
through. And then he slammed it right behind.
I
you.
did.
See, we can banter.
We can banter a little.
I mean,
Well,
we
what
have
about
skills.
like the wind is blowing outside, and the guy or lady on TV is trying to talk over the wind blowing through their mic?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, why is that happening?
It adds to the atmosphere.
Yeah, it's like
It
this
just
is
adds to my annoyance and I just go channel.
right.
Or a muted,
And I-
or, yeah. What is that
Don't like
noise?
That would be
Furnace?
The whistle.
Radiators. I'm gonna guess. Maybe not.
Oh, I thought it was
Might be
the
outside.
12 o'clock siren. Don't they still do that here? It's just 12.
No, that's not what it is, though.
The Carillon should start.
The Carillon should start, but that's like a,
That's not what it. There
Yeah,
goes the.
that's
It's 12 o'clock on the dot.
perfect. And you can't hear it really on this very well. I mean,
Perfect.
there's like, sometimes there's a little bit of background noise on the recording, but not always. It's just weird. It's just weird being in here with nobody.
Else absorbing the sound, yeah.
Yeah.
They're all there
They're
in
all
the ether.
there.
In the ether.
Keep looking at them here, but they're there.
All right, so 12 o'clock, welcome to Gathered at the Table with our substitute, gatherees. Phil has been summoned, so, you know,
That should be interesting.
we'll see how that goes.
I'll be curious to hear the after from that.
Yeah, so we got a few announcements. So May 13th is the blood drive. So we're looking for volunteers to help do check-in from 9 to 5. So if you're available to do that, go ahead and contact the office and let them know. And I don't know how we're doing as far as slots left, if there's any left or not, but
No clue.
We'll
won't
see.
be here.
We won't be here, so we're kind
That
of
will
like,
be at
because
City
usually
Assembly.
I've been donating every single time. They really do a great job, but we're going to be away.
We're
so.
going to be in
Yeah.
Ocean City. It's in
I've got to actually organize something for support of the communion, because remember, we're going into,
Oh, yes. Yes,
Communion every
yes,
Sunday.
Communion
Sunday.
every Sunday.
and I got May.
Oh, yes.
Congratulations.
Like, yay me. And
Thank
so
you.
now I have to make sure somebody's going to be available, because I don't think we're driving back until Sunday morning.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, taking a little,
Oh, nice. You're taking an
little
extra
time.
day.
Yeah,
See, I'll be
I
here,
think.
but I
I'm
have
pretty sure.
All right, so Strawberry Festival is also on the 21st. And I think they're still looking for some help, so to do setup before and then run some of the stations. So if you're available, you can get a hold of Kate or Sheila. And then I think they're still looking for baked goods as well, and Marie's handling that. So if any of those strike your fancy,
baking for the strawberry shortcake,
Yep.
too.
Both, yeah,
Yeah,
both the
Right.
in
cakes
addition
and
to
the-
the bake sale, yeah.
and May 1st is going to be chat. So there's going to be chat this Sunday. Is that
Oh,
this?
that's
No.
this Sunday. Yeah, it is.
Is it? I can't tell what day of
Yes,
the week
it
it
is.
is.
Today's the 28th, and the
Okay.
30th is the end of the month, so yeah.
Perfect.
Wow.
See, I got that right.
Where is the
Very,
month?
I know, where did April go, man?
I don't know.
And when the epistle comes out, we're going to try something new in June. We're going to start doing ministry Sundays. So the first Sunday of every month, every one of the ministry groups is going to meet on the same day, on that Sunday right after church. So there's details in the epistle, and then
Weeklies.
the weeklies, and then next month's epistle, there'll be a little bit more detailed thing about each group. So even if you're not itching to jump on one of the groups, you can come sit in on the Sunday and just check it out and see what you think, and maybe you'll feel called.
I was going to say, you might get the call right then and there.
Yeah,
so.
you might, just to help. I mean, we always need help everywhere, and sometimes it's nice to hear in person what's going on, and this makes it easier for everybody to, already be here. It's not in the evening,
Right.
and, it's only going to be an hour. We're going to cap it.
I was going to say, we're
Hard.
going to have to probably work on that a little bit.
We will, and
I know
we'll
my
assist
my
in
ministry
groups.
will.
All right,
There's
and the
something that-
whole purpose of it is accessibility.
Yep.
More opportunities and easier opportunities to come and be a part of what's going on.
And we're going to try to have like everybody kind of talk to each other for a little bit.
Yep, we're going to
When we
start with
start.
a big group opening, disperse, end with a big group opening.
Yeah,
So yeah, we'll get a little more details out the closer we get.
that sounds good too, because that cross communication among ministries is really
Exactly.
important.
Oh, yeah, and it just makes it so much easier.
Right. And having to go through 3 or 4 people to,
Right,
know.
or even sending an email and waiting. I mean, you're literally all right there together.
Right.
Hopefully my volume is better. When I adjusted the volume before, I forgot I'm on pastor mic, I'm normally on 2 or 3, but that's
Oh,
the 2 of you, and I'm
okay.
pastor, so I hadn't actually turned mine up.
okay.
So Amy just told me that mine was too low, so,
Gotcha.
oh darn.
She'll tell you, let me tell you. So what are we talking about today?
Ooh, it's a good one. End of life decisions. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an area with a lot of information, but also a lot of questions, I think, for people.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I agree.
So starting at the beginning here, this is from 1992, so this one hasn't been updated for a minute.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I noticed
well,
that.
the original one was 1982, I think.
Right.
And so this was at least a little bit more recent.
Right, but I think the majority of everything still applies. I don't think anything's
Absolutely.
really changed that much with it. And, you start off with situations where someone has a terminal illness, and depending on what situation they're in, they could be in a vegetative state or any number of different, in
Or a
constant
terminal
pain,
illness
and what,
with no possibility
Cure.
cure or yeah.
right, and how does that get handled? And part of this statement is, or message is, preparing ahead of time,
Yes.
and part of it is, ethics of it, and the other part is, what do you do to make this situation as easy as possible?
Right. To move as smoothly as you can make it without causing a lot of extra trauma. Because if you think about it, you and your family are already going through the leave-taking process once you know that there's something happening. And that's traumatic enough. But
Right.
then if you have all these other questions coming up at that time and you haven't really considered them, a person whose mind is intact absolutely has the right to say what they want at any point. However, what often happens is those decisions aren't made,
Right.
and the person no longer has that ability to make that decision, at least according to the way our guidelines, kind of set up. Is the person competent or not competent?
Right.
And then it falls upon all these family members
Right. To
try
guess.
to guess, what do we want to do? What are we going to do?
And what happens a lot of times is, well, I knew mom wanted this. Well, no, she didn't. She always told me this.
Exactly.
And then you end up with a split in the family on top of all the other
Just so
issues that are going on.
horrible.
Right. You're already walking through a bit of a grieving process, and then you add the angst of family dispute.
Right.
And everybody comes at it from a different perspective, even in the same family. You're all individuals, as we are created, and all have different thoughts about, what we think in this, if we're talking about a parent situation, what we think the parent wants. And, well, no, this sibling thinks this was what was wanted. And again, if you're not prepared ahead with directives and plans, wow, it just is, it's hard.
It is.
I don't know how else to put
very
it.
Well,
It's
and
hard.
realistically, besides the emotional toll and all that, there's financial toll too.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you have somebody attached to a machine 24 hours a day, 7
Yes.
days a week, that
Is
can
insurance covering it?
bankrupt everyone
Well,
Right.
on
for
top of the loss.
For a while they will, but not
Not
forever.
for forever, exactly. You
Right.
can't just keep going status quo, hoping something's going to change. I mean, it's just,
Well, and I thought their comment that it's a painful dilemma. I
yes.
thought that
Right.
really encompassed so much of what you're dealing with, pain, physical pain, emotional pain, as you say, potential physical pain as well. But that competency and non-competency is always kind of thrown in there on top
Right.
of it. And we're ultimately responsible to God
Right.
for the appropriateness of our lives according to His will. So I think the grace, though, that we hope for is something that we can actually access more easily if we know some of those basic decisions have been made.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like you don't have quite that painful trauma that you're trying to deal with as an individual or as a family. You can just feel the grace more when all those little all those detail things are kind of taken care
Right,
of.
and if you do it ahead of time, because I think Amy and I, we did ours a while ago, but, you have time to change it if you change your mind
Right.
down the road. But even looking at it, just thinking about it, and a lot of people are sort of overwhelmed by it. And then when you read the question and you're like, wow, what do I think about that? And you really got to sit down and try and decide, how much do I want people to, keep me hanging on,
Right.
And that's an interesting thing in the state of Maryland, because we have a very specific kind of form that can be used. Now, you don't have to, but it does make things easier in some ways. It's called the Maryland Order for Life-Sustaining Treatment. It's a MOLST form. I
That
know,
is
it's
a
like great.
beautiful
Okay.
acronym.
MOLST, not moldy, but MOLST.
Not moist.
Not moist, no, don't go there. But it's really good because we tried to identify a lot of those kind of situations that might come up where you are in either an end of life because of your diagnosis and there's no treatments available, or at an advanced age where there is also no intervention that's going to make you young again. And as you get to be in your 70s, 80s, and 90s, I have to tell you, that comes more to your mind than it used to. But those forms actually go through a lot of the things like you were saying, like, well, if I'm in a persistent vegetative state, do I want to try not just regular nutrition and hydration, not just regular food and water being offered to me, which obviously not going to accept at that point, but do I want to have that next step, which is what is more considered a medical intervention of artificial hydration and nutrition. So there's, and if you do, how long do you want to have it?
Right.
And what's the impact going to be? So, I mean, it's a lot of decision making. And sometimes you have to take it in little tiny bites. Like I can deal with this much right now. And as you said, then later down the road, you adjust, you make changes, because life changes.
All right, and also, your family members or significant others are going to already be in a state based on this. Do you want them to have to deal with that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Cool.
it's a lot.
Well, and so what I was going to say was, I seem to remember it's been a few-ish years, and maybe both remember when we had an offering of someone who came or brought information about 5 wishes.
Yeah.
And
Great
so
tool.
that is something, and I should have found the resource or a link or something, I'll have to put it up, about how to, that's the whole prep planning. It's like, when it's sort of the companion to doing your will is doing your 5 wishes
Right.
for your actual, like, what specific songs do you want at your funeral, as
Right.
well as do you want to be kept alive by artificial remedies.
And however long that might be.
And Amy's saying it's not enough to just discuss with your family members, you need to have it in writing.
Exactly.
And
I think
perfect
that's,
point.
yeah, good point, because you can all talk about it, but until it's in writing, you're the only one that's able to make that statement. So, but once you put it in writing and get it, you don't even have to have it notarized per se, but it's not bad to have someone, most
Right.
of them require some kind of witnessing.
Right.
But this is called the conservation project, and it was related to the 5 wishes, but they said, 5, there's a little gnat,
I
and
know,
it's
I
trying
see
to
it.
get me. There's multiple tools out there that you can use, like 5 wishes, but what this does is it just says, let's get started talking about it. We
Right.
can use many kinds of tools formats to discuss, but the discussion process is really what's important, and then putting it in writing so that everybody else will know, including your physician.
Right.
Because
Oh, true.
your physicians or the emergency rooms or whomever you're dealing with, they'll try to get from you, but again, if you're not able, then this way they know exactly which
Right,
which
and
road
aren't they're set to, and somewhere in here, I didn't highlight it, as from a medical perspective, I mean, they share, okay, here it is. Patients and healthcare professionals share a common concern that medical treatment be beneficial. So, they're there to do everything possible to keep you alive. That's
kind of their mission.
that is their mission, unless they are directed otherwise in writing,
And one
not
thing
by word of mouth.
that we ran into, I don't know, probably a year ago, was after our son turned 18, we hadn't thought about it. Well, he's an adult now.
Yeah.
He's single. Who's available if he can't make his own decisions?
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up doing a medical power of attorney,
Mhm.
you know, and then this sort of information sort of slid his way, and he wasn't quite ready for those. You know, he was like,
That's a lot.
it is. But it's still, you know, you don't want to think about that, but, you know,
We don't want to think about doing our will either.
age is not really as relevant in this because,
Correct.
you know,
Well,
wherever
and
you're at.
And it brings up though that point of you know, it used to be so thought that, well, you must be planning on dying. You're prepping your will. No,
No.
that is absolutely not. I'm making sure that I don't have to be worried that things are left unsaid or unscheduled or undetermined.
Right.
It is laid out. I mean, there's a reason to be prepared. I mean, you prepare yourself for other things, so why should this be any different?
Right.
I don't know. It's easier said than done, though. I mean,
It
you know,
is.
I can sit here and say that, you know,
And
detaching.
taking that next step and actually
Correct.
doing something about it is pretty tricky.
It is, especially if, for example, you're the child and you want to talk to the parent, and they're not willing.
That's why something like this can be helpful. Like,
It absolutely. That's why
happen to have this.
having a format of something
Yeah.
to say, hey, you know, we're just thinking about that. Volume is in and out. Okay,
It was
well,
it was interesting because as Keith and I got older, you know, and I've had the wonderful opportunity to be with many different people when they were passing from this to the church triumphant or wherever they felt was coming next for them, because you know you
Right.
deal with a lot of people in the healthcare. So it was always so amazing to me that the folks who had actually thought through and talked about some of this stuff, and the families that had been involved, and the religious leaders that they had, their grace people, their passing seemed to be, as I say, more grace seemed to be accessible to them because they weren't having those things to worry about. So as Keith and I were getting older, we thought, well, maybe we ought to take a look at this, you know. And it is not an easy thing to talk through. And when Anson and Aaron both got their copies of, you know, by the way, we're thinking of making you medical power of attorneys and financial power of attorneys, and they're like, what? What's going on? Like you said, you know, is something wrong that we don't know about? You know, no, it's just, it's good planning. So they actually are moving into doing that themselves.
Yeah, and you know, that's one of those things where, you know, it's almost like on your 18th birthday, you get to be an adult, and here's some forms. You know,
Well, when
this is
Aaron
part of
went
your
into
adult
the
packet.
service, he had to go through that with
Right,
going into
absolutely.
service, and that was a real wake-up call.
eye-opener.
Yep, the military's good about that.
Yeah.
They make you do that.
Well, and I mean, who's to say that's a bad thing?
It isn't.
Because otherwise, we lay in ignorance, and then suddenly a parent gets ill, and nothing is prepped, and what do? You know, especially if it's a fairly quick demise, and the mental acuity, you know, takes a downward turn quickly.
Yeah.
Having been in those shoes, I know, and it's not fun.
No.
All right.
The Christian perspective part that they talked about in here, I thought was really good too.
Right.
Because they kind
Yes.
of covered all, I mean, we kind of skirted around some of these, but Russ, you have that there, right?
Right. So they've got a few bullet points here associated with Christian perspective. Life's a gift from God to be received with thanksgiving. The integrity of the life process which God has created should be respected. Both birth and death are part of these life processes. That's one of those things where everybody's gonna have both of those if they're a person. So, you know, there's no way
We
around
kind
it.
of think so.
Both living and dying should occur within a caring community. And a lot of the messages that we've done before this, that's what almost every message is
It's all
about, is
about the caring community.
coming alongside people in all their
Relationship.
situations, and this is no different. Let's see, a Christian perspective mandates respect for each person. Such respect includes giving due recognition to each person's carefully considered preferences regarding treatment decisions.
And that's
So
a-
it's fired out of a cannon, over Niagara Falls, then you must respect that.
Right, it's not, you're not there to make a judgment on it.
Exactly.
Right.
You're not there to make the decision for them. Although I have to say, historically, sometimes doctors were put in that position, and because their mission has always been to extend
Right.
life as long as possible, they got to the point where they were not just extending life, but they were attempting to defy death.
Right.
And at that point, you're also stepping in where your relationship with God is really what should be handling that.
Right.
Right.
Or at least
and
should be involved.
Respected too.
Right.
Absolutely. And we get into a little bit more of that later on about, people's decisions in there. Truthfulness and faithfulness in our relations with others are essential to the texture of human life. And hope and meaning in life are possible even in times of suffering and adversity, a truth powerfully proclaimed in the resurrection faith of the church. And that's one of the most important parts, even in suffering and adversity, there's still life and hope in that.
Absolutely.
Right, because it's not, I always like the definition that our church has gone for a long time with, which is healing does not necessarily mean cure.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Healing is a relationship. To me, it's the relationship of you and your Lord, and how that is in the best place possible.
Right, and if you look back a few episodes, we went through all that,
that.
and
I seem to remember that.
yeah. So
Good
if you want to hit
tie-in,
some
right?
reruns,
Segue.
Yeah.
right.
Good.
And then if we move on, they go into more of the specifics about, artificially administered nutrition and hydration, and where sort of
There's a
the
line.
different levels are,
Yeah.
we should say, right? And it's really, if the person is competent, it's up to them to decide, what they want and what they
Absolutely.
don't.
Absolutely.
And it's up to really the physicians and everyone else to make it as comfortable as possible based on their decision.
Right. And I think then that's another line where discussion needs to continue to occur, because that's where we get some issues, perhaps, of, well, what does it mean if we're helping someone be comfortable, but then when does that teeter on the edge of making them so comfortable that they're no longer with us?
Oh,
Right.
You know what I mean?
right.
It's like palliation to me is extremely important and a very beneficial intervention. But it's also to the point where there was actually a physician who was brought up on murder charges not too long ago for attempting, he allowed people to have access to pain medication that when they looked at the dosages, they said, oh, that probably allowed them to die right then. I mean, and I'm using that
Right.
terminology very carefully
Sure.
because in my perspective, that was what it was happening, but in some people's perspective, it was he killed them by giving
Right.
them that dose of medication.
Well, I know when I was looking into some of the stuff, there's 10 states plus the District of Columbia where physicians are allowed to assist.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
You
you
know.
better have very good documentation of
Right.
what you're doing.
And I know it's, is it Switzerland, Sweden? Switzerland, where the guy built the basics, the suicide pod
Yeah.
for people to, end their life. It's supposed to be painless, but there's a lot of issues with that because, can a child climb in it and play? Because it looks like a spaceship,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
someone, goofing around in it. So there's lots of, issues with that too.
Unintended consequences
Right.
that might occur, yeah.
Right. And if you've, had to deal with somebody, in one of these catastrophic illnesses, you can see where, it's almost better for them
Crosses
to
the
go.
mind and where,
Right.
Yeah.
So,
again, that's where, there can't be a judgment from the outside. I mean, it's,
And I think our church is very, very supportive in saying that that's why they want people to have the opportunity to discuss and make their decisions and write their decisions. But as you said, for us, always keeping in mind that there is opportunity for hope and healing. It may not be physical
Right.
healing,
Right.
because we're finite beings. That's how God made us. So,
Correct. And then to go on to be with him in eternity.
right. But I always found it fascinating. Oh, maybe this is too much off topic. Just cut it
Is there
off.
such a thing?
Just cut it off if you think so. But I always found it fascinating, early church, talking about, how they actually had to come out and say, don't take your life just to be with Jesus now.
Wow.
He has work for you to do here, and you will be with him later. But that's actually some of where the early church's prohibitions about suicide came from.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I did
it's
not know that.
Very interesting if you read any of that.
Well, if you're curious where the Lutheran Church stands, they do not hem and haw on this,
No,
because
they
they
do
say we
not.
oppose the legalization of physician-assisted death, which would allow the private killing of one person by another.
Right.
So, and their reasoning is public control and regulation of such actions would be extremely difficult, if not impossible.
Exactly.
The potential for abuse, especially of people who are most vulnerable, would be substantially increased.
Yeah.
So they give a reason, and on some of these statements, they sort of toe a line. There's a few where they're just like, there you go.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And
that's,
this
is
definitely
it.
was, yeah.
This is
Right.
it, yeah.
And, that's totally understandable. But on the flip side, the caring of the people as they, get to the end and go through these things is the main.
Yes, and that's
Directive.
extremely, I think the church can be extremely supportive, again, in relationship
Right.
with palliation services, with hospice services.
Absolutely.
A lot of, like you said, a lot of people go, well, hospice, oh, that means I'm going to die. Well, but aren't we all? But it means that the journey to the church triumphant may be made easier for everyone involved if you use their services, because they're extremely supportive of what you and your family and your religious perspective want and need. So I think that, people have gotten a little less sensitive about hospice, but not everybody.
No, I agree. Not everybody, but it is a absolutely amazing and wonderful support. I mean,
Yeah.
they're just wonderful.
No
People.
healthcare professional is freed ever from the obligation to give basic human care.
Right.
That is absolutely, and comfort, that's absolutely what we must do. Even though it's during the dying process. That's what we're there for, so that's what we do.
Right. Well, there still is that comfort, and that's, how this whole statement ends is ministry in preparation for the end of life. And, what I highlighted was what we talked about a little bit before we came on, was that communities of faith can, and often do provide holistic ministry to prepare people for end-of-life decisions.
Yeah.
Pastors help people deal with their fears. Congregations offer opportunities for conversation and inviting chaplains, hospice caregivers, social workers, in to discuss those topics. We've started doing that even when we had someone in, 2 months ago maybe, for information about
The dementia care series and stuff
exactly,
that we
yes, I
had,
can't
yeah.
remember what it was called.
Don't
That's
go there.
Perfect.
That's- Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And looking at, we've been talking about, the opportunities to offer that understanding, that knowledge. I think, again, that knowledge is power is really true, that the more information we have to make decisions or to have discussions, hard or not, the support of material to do that, it's all intended to make the discussion process a little less troublesome, a little less
Heartrending.
Well, and you can also go out and get the information about, if it's the actual medical information, what is going to happen with me if I choose this path?
Exactly.
Or
Yeah.
talk to somebody who has already filled out their stuff and say, well, why did you choose this?
Yeah.
And it'll give you some different perspectives, maybe some things you hadn't thought of.
And as
know.
you mentioned, there are actually a couple of services out here that are available in our community that Frederick Health System is working really diligently to develop their palliative care and support services, which that's really where they're coming from. It's to help you go through the process of making advance directives and learning, like, what's this really mean? Because a lot of it is, jargon.
Right.
As everybody says, oh, there's that terrible jargon stuff. But that kind of caring treatment has really got the best, I think, best opportunity to help us not have to think that physician-assisted death is necessary.
Right.
If we have the ability to make our wishes known and to say, okay, they're all in writing, and now when something is happening, I can allow my support of my life to go on as long as possible until we just allow death to occur. It's a natural, as the church says, it's a natural part of our life. So
Exactly.
there
Right, and even if you're not in the church, it's still a natural.
it's
You
still
can't get away from it that
one way or
either.
another.
It's going to happen.
That is
The
true.
church has emphasized that.
But,
Right.
I have a friend of mine who was going through cancer treatment and basically said, I'm doing this one thing, and if it doesn't work, I'm just going to go. And whatever happens, happens. Well, it was a year and a half later, and then they're going through another different treatment. So they had a change of heart at some point there. So just with these things, when you fill them out, I filled mine out, I don't know what I was, 40 maybe?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not 40 anymore. And if, I've
42.
had some time, and if I, want to go back and review it and say, hey, have I changed my mind?
A lot of
Do I
people
think
recommend
different?
about no longer than 5 years in between to go back and relook at things because you change. Things
Right.
change. Or if you have a major change in your health status that you want to
Right, or
reconsider.
just your life status.
Yeah, it's different.
Right, because of what goes on around you, too, can sometimes do have that eye-opening experience, whether it's immediate family, whether it's a congregation member that, you're close to, whether you're one of those people that is helping to provide that Christian support to someone, and that can make you go.
I mean, because our Stephen Ministry program can be extremely helpful in that kind of process, too. So.
Absolutely.
As well as, just individuals helping each other. We actually have a program that can be very supportive.
We
so.
definitely do, and obviously always back to the pastor. I mean, that
Yeah,
is
well,
one of his
he's
jobs.
kind of important.
Yes, yes, that knucklehead,
As he likes to say.
throw around. Yes,
God-given mystery
right.
of both life and death.
Right, so it looks like we're getting up against time
Time,
here.
yeah.
So any last thoughts?
Good. We did good.
And Deb, you had something you brought with.
Yeah, well, this
Just
I
throw
just
it out
kind of
there.
threw it out there in the beginning, but
Okay.
it's called the Conversation Project, and it is actually, this is a tool that's used, or paperwork that's used through the Frederick Health System, but it's from originally the Institute for Healthcare Improvement, because, those of us in healthcare have had this issue to have to try to deal with for
sure.
a long time.
Right.
And it was really, it really brings together all those kinds of questions that you might have and says, okay, well, what do we, and it's really breaking the ice kind of conversation. It's not going into the details yet. It's like, but how do we start that conversation with folks? And it's available through Frederick Health if you
Your
ever want to get it.
conversation, what's it called?
It's called your Conversation Starter Kit, and it's the Conversation Project. It was similar to the Five Wishes group, but they came up with it from Institute for Healthcare Improvement, and Frederick Health has it available.
I'm just putting it in the notes so that
Yeah.
it's there.
Yeah.
All right, so,
And they emphasize the healthcare proxy and the advance directive.
right, so, if you haven't started,
It's a way to
no
start.
time like the present.
Exactly, and obviously, again, if there's help to be, needed or whatever,
Ask.
contact, the pastor,
Right.
contact Deb.
I'm happy
she's
to
very,
talk with you about it if you'd like.
And contact, the office for Stephen Minister, too.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
know, again, we do have so many different opportunities to support our fellow Christian members here, beyond.
And wherever, yeah, for sure. So anybody's interested. And maybe if we get some feedback or people are interested in a way, we could maybe set up something like we did for the
Have a little
dementia. But we could
Right.
have a little seminar and bring in some other folks
Absolutely.
to give people a little more detail if they would like it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, well, we appreciate everybody that joined us today,
Yeah.
and we'll see you next
Thanks,
time.
Keith.
And Amy.
And Amy.
Diane.
Susan, make
I
it.
did not see, I just saw